Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Six Figure Souls Doing Good and Making Money. I am your host, Camille Miller, founder of the Natural Life Business Partnership, a global network for soul centered entrepreneurs. Today, we are having a very exciting interview with Kelly Leveille, owner and magnetic mind coach with Be Aligned. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Yeah, I love sharing this.
I love your story too. I had asked Kelly, she was probably one of my first asked when I decided to do this because I kind of knew a little bit about your backstory and kind of saw where you were going. And I was like, okay, I'd love to share her story. So I love that you are a mom of two sets of twins. Because I'm a mom of twins
Twins.
too. So I think it's great to show that you can, kind of like live your truth, right? Do what you love, make money, and still have a life and a family and all these other things that you enjoy. So welcome.
Thank you so much. So
So
wonderful.
Kelly, start us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So it's a long story, but what do I do now? So
Well,
what
tell
I'm
me about what
doing,
you do now, and then we'll talk
yeah, we'll talk
about how
about
you got
backstory.
there.
So
Okay.
what I'm doing now is working. I have personal clients that I coach. That is a combination of this mastership and recode coach to just align people with what they want. And I love this process because it's really gentle. It's massively changing, and how it's changed my life. I've been in the healing industry for 22 years,
Yep.
and what kind of got me always stuck and kind of in this place of like an oscillating structure that kept bringing me back to the problems and the issues and what I had to work on to get better, to make more money, and to be more of what I thought I needed to be. Now I'm in this place of living my dream and doing what I love and what I do best every day, and I just can't get enough. So just coaching people, getting them into a position to step into their dreams and a life they love, and to actually work with people that have results and big results is just so much fun and so amazing.
Okay, great. So take us to a point for every entrepreneur, they come across this time where they feel like quitting, or did I make a good choice, or a setback. Can you share maybe a moment where you didn't feel like you had it all together, and it could be the beginning, or a moment when you just
Yeah.
wanted to quit, and then how you pulled through that?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. I was raised by entrepreneurial spirit. My father
Okay.
was an entrepreneur, and I was raised by a dental hygienist who was very steady and safe and had the job that always was the safety net. And my father was very much like willing to take risks and change his career, and went from landscape architect to owning a grocery market. And I watched this my whole life. And so growing up, I kind of was willing to take risks really young. I was 19 years old when I left nursing school and went in and got into business selling knives, and an MLM. I made $36,000 in 2 weeks, and it just worked. And I felt so clear that being on my own, and because I was independent, it came easy.
Okay.
And then I've also held jobs where I was in a position of structure and getting a paycheck, which is a totally different experience. And so it's kind of like this interesting dance. I don't know if I ever really felt like, actually, is that true? I think that there's a balance in being able to, like, it takes, people think entrepreneurship comes with freedom and all of this stuff, and it does to a degree, but it also is work. And if you don't get your mindset around like putting in the time, the energy, and the structure that's going to be successful, then it could just feel like, well, I tried it but it didn't work. And I think that people have kind of a misconstrued ideal about, oh, entrepreneurship is like this ideal lifestyle, and eventually I know that it can and does be that. But if you're stepping into it and just creating another job for yourself, then there's the limitation. So I think that internal awareness for me was something that was really interesting. And I love creating, and I love building businesses and succeeding and learning and falling and growing and doing all the things. So that's kind of been my journey in a nutshell. So that was a really good question. I never actually was like, oh, I think I want to change and be an entrepreneur. I've kind of had this dance with entrepreneurship since I was a kid.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get attached to the idea of freedom, but they don't realize that there's a lot of work before you hit that freedom.
Right.
And there's a lot of losing money and making some bad decisions along the way, but I think failure is a part of success.
Right.
Like because if you fail right, you learn from it and it becomes something greater as you move on.
And I think the biggest trick in that too is to just not give up. It's like, is it failure? Is it that learning, like transitionary period of like, or transitory period of like, you're learning, you're growing, you're expanding, and then there's contraction. And, I always say personally, like freedom is an inside job. And if you're getting to a place where it's like, well, someday my butt will be on the beach, if you can't find the absolute joy and freedom here now, what good is sitting on the beach going to do? And do you really want to just sit there for the next 30 years? I don't know. I probably would be doing the same thing until I'm about 90. So it's interesting when you love what you do so much.
That is so true. And I like your story because my father was a huge influence on me in entrepreneurship because he always said, follow your passion, you'll get paid for it. Do what you want to do every single day, whether you get paid or not. Like
Right.
that's how you choose your lifestyle. And he was a big entrepreneur. He was also a dentist, but he
Oh, I
did all
love
his
it.
other things on his side. But and he always just said, make sure you work for yourself. Just make
Yeah.
sure you always work for yourself.
Yeah.
So there has been hard times where I'm like, Dad.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember coming out of college and not kind of understanding how much money, like what money bought, right? And it grows as you grow. Like you learn more because I didn't know what was a lot of money, what was a good salary, but like I don't know. And I remember sitting there in my dad's kitchen, and my dad was very successful, and I just said, so looking around, I grew up in a rather large home in a nice town, saying like, how much money do I have to make to live like this? And I remember him laughing and saying, oh honey, you'll never live like this. So it just
Watch me.
right? So it just kind of became this, wait, that sounds like a talent.
I love
So
that.
yeah. But it was really
Yeah.
the freedom, and I saw that I had a parent that could always be at, my high school sports games, and he would drive up from college to see me, and we had, days off, and he would play golf, and that was the lifestyle I saw and wanted, but I also knew that he worked really hard for it.
Right.
Right? We saw both sides, and he always taught us
Yeah.
balance. So I think that's an important piece. There's got to be balance,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, well, that's so interesting too, because in addition to my dad being this entrepreneurial spirit, someone used to say, one of our old family friends said, your dad got bit in the ass by a fox when he was about 2 years old. And he was funny with his work. He would do something, do it well, and sell it. So he was kind of this hand over fist entrepreneur, where my grandfather was also a dentist, and his practice, he's since passed, but his practice still exists and is his son's practice, and my mom works there. And you can see the legacy of hard work and focus versus an entrepreneurial idea of how do I make money quick and flip it and have that as, so there's so many different roads as a spirit you can go. And I think that my desire was always to outgrow my dad, blessings dad if you see this, but to outgrow him and to get back to the crux of like wanting to live a life that I love and do what I'm good at and become a master of my trade, so that it felt like steady and brought security, as opposed to where's my next changeover going to happen and come from, so it's resourceful, but just not my ideal.
Yeah. And I think everyone's passion or zone of genius is
Amazing,
their own, right?
Yeah,
So
so
it
cool.
took me a long time to figure out, and even when I created NLBP, I literally wrote down what I liked and what I didn't like. Like just in life. Right? Here's what I want to happen, here's what I don't want to happen, and kind of created what I was thinking. But I
Mm-hmm.
always knew I loved building businesses, but hated running them.
Mm,
Right. So in
interesting.
developing NLBP, I got to help other people develop businesses, but I never had to run them.
Right.
So it was just like, how do I get this to be where I want to go and have it constantly changing because I get bored. So to always bring new challenges towards me. And by
That's
doing it in a
amazing.
group format, it's easier for me. So it works that way. So
Yeah.
I think everybody has to kind of think, how does it work for me? What do I like to do? And go from
Right.
there.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
So
100%.
tell me a little bit about scaling your business or businesses, because I know you have more than one, or
Right.
had, like you had a life and then have this
Yeah.
new life now. And tell us
Yeah.
about scaling and getting to a place of comfort.
So scaling business is an interesting thing. When I was growing up or in my early 20s and running my healing practice, it was one to one. I mean, I made decent money. At first, actually, I did it all on donation basis.
Wow.
And that was probably the easiest flow. I was constantly busy and always hovered around like the same amount of money, and it was steady, it was secure, and it was successful. It was the wildest experience, and I really felt, and this is, I think, so interesting, because I really did feel like, how can I charge people? And this is so interesting because you're talking about this, is how can I charge people for just giving them their life back, for bringing
Yeah.
health back into their body, for holding space for their dreams. And for a long time, there was probably like 6 or 7 years where I traveled with my table. I put it on my shoulder. I went to people's homes. I set up the whole experience. And they did donation basis, and they would donate between 60 and $150. And it worked, and it was fine. I really did a lot of work, a lot of healing work myself on value and time, and
Yeah.
putting a price tag to that, and kind of being okay with it. And so back then I wasn't scaling my business at all. It was really whatever I could do, wherever I could travel during the day. However, that was like, well, how many clients could I see? Then when I was running my yoga business, and I could teach one class I think the space was pretty small, but if I had 10 people paying $20 for a class, that's $200 for a class, and there's leverage time, right? So
Right.
I started to really understand that when you work um, in group situations, and you can leverage it with time and the amount of people you can serve at once, that becomes a very different experience. And so instead of just thinking, even though I do find so much value in one-to-one, I also know that if I have a group recode of 200 people, they're getting the same amount, if not more, value, because they're bouncing off each other.
Right.
But then it's also leveraging that time. 200 people at $49 versus one person at $150. That's a big difference,
Big
and also
difference.
frees up a lot of my time. And so leveraging business in that way has taken, something that was just a kind of small, sweet business into, 6, potentially 7 figures of that, with less time,
Yeah.
3 or 4 hours of work a week versus 10 hours a day is big difference,
Huge.
plus travel and time and the whole thing. So it's massively changed in the last, dare I say, 22 years. We're working on the energy phase, ageless and timeless.
So I'm curious, has this virus, this time of pandemic, changed your business at all?
Oh yeah, totally, rocket,
Yeah.
skyrocket. And
Yeah.
I think I was talking to a client today, and she's like, I know I got to use and leverage, social media and Zoom, and the pandemic has killed my business because I can't even walk around and talk to anybody, and I live on a farm. And I'm like, whoa, are you hearing yourself? You live on the farm in the middle of bumbleclad nowhere, and now you have access. I'm talking to you. You're in Australia. I'm in New York. Like, can I help you? Like, leverage this? Like, you are crazy, and you have a big dream. Like, this is the
Yes.
best time. And even if people think, well, I have a brick and mortar and I have to go to work, and I we have access to so much on social media. I brought a business 6 figures in 6 months on social media, on Facebook. You know, forget about Facebook ads, forget about paying for marketing. I took it by myself in 6 months, 6 figures, without even thinking twice about it. And I didn't even leverage that as having a team. So it's this really interesting time. And the pandemic has been amazing. And I think it's amazing for entrepreneurs right now to actually find a creative way to take advantage. You're an entrepreneur, you're creative. End of story. If you're in this world, you are that. And if you could just utilize it and get creative, I mean, even the company that I'm working with now, you know, has quadrupled their sales in 2 months. You know, they were hovering around 250,000 a month, and they just surpassed like 900,000, and it's not even the end of May. So it's big. It's a big time, and people are home. And as much as people feel like I have no money, I'm home, I'm broke. Well, you got a lot of time, and you have access.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree. What, if you could pinpoint like one lever that really pushed your business forward, do you know what that would be?
Yeah, I know the exact moment. It was, I got to a place of leverage, you know, right before the pandemic happened. I had 6 hours a day. So my twins are little. They're 4 and 6 years old. And so they were going to school between 9 and 2 when I picked up my little guys, and then everybody started to come home in droves. And so I had this time frame where I could get a certain amount done, and that was my day. So when they all came home, you know, next thing you know, here's this entrepreneur with lots of kids, and now is homeschooling and no time. So I was just kind of thinking about, one of the things that I do in my Recode practice and work is creating my life and creating my experience. And I was folding the laundry, and I just thought, it would be so wonderful and so much fun to have a full schedule, to not have to worry about it being filled up, and to be paid for what I do best and not have to worry about anything else. And within 2 hours, I got a text for an opportunity and it put me like right in that position. And so one of the things that I think that we have access to, and I don't want this to get or be too woo-woo, because I'm super woo and super grounded at the same time. I'm, you know, business woo. And, you know, we can create whatever we want. And when we get into a place of opening to the possibility of that mindset, and a lot of people in entrepreneurship talk about mindset, but I think it's body, mind, soul set and alignment. And so that's part of why I talk about being aligned. Changed everything, and it just blew the doors open. And then since then, I've, you know, stepped into many opportunities. My personal business has skyrocketed. My calendar is full with that opportunity. I'm getting, you know, I'm doing interviews and also working and doing workshops with people online. So all of a sudden, everything just flooded open. It was from simply stepping into how fun it would be to experience this, and beyond, like, that changed everything for me.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, really cool.
So, where do you think that driver comes from inside of you?
The motivation?
Yeah.
Whew. Gosh, you're getting me with these really good questions. You know, wow, that's a good one. There's something in me that has always been willing to go for it. And, you know, I was 19 years old, and I came home because I knew nursing school was like not where I was supposed to be. It felt wrong. My parents were like, we're paying for it, just finish, like, get your degree, blah, 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 blah. And my soul was suffering. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And a few things happened that really potentially felt like if you don't change your course, you will die. Like, this was a live or die kind of situation. And that's happened a couple times in my life. And so here I am. I came home from a really hard mental, physical, emotional, draining semester. And I had this job. My mom had me like waiting tables at a local country club or something, and I hated it. So I quit the job within a few days. I was sitting on the couch, and I'm not a sitter. Like, I am pretty driven. And I think just that feeling like, okay, I gotta do something. I gotta take my life into my own hands. And I got up, I picked up the paper. I saw this opportunity for college students. I went in, it was selling knives. And at that time I was young and we had to make cold calls. I had to call people up and be like, hey,
Wow.
I'm working on a scholarship. Can I come and show you these knives? Like, I made cold calls. I made appointments. I got myself there. I was, doing all these things. And when I stood in front of the group, because I was one of the top people in that section of my industry, and I looked at this crowd and I was like, how can I convince you that this is worth it? How can I convince you that the hard work and putting yourself out there and forget about facing your fears, totally overriding it and starting conversations and meeting people and going into their homes and cutting pennies, like, how could I convince you that as a 19-year-old, a $4,000 check on a Friday was like a great thing? I don't know. Maybe I should have used that leverage analogy, because I was like, you guys, I don't even know how to tell you or explain, but it's always been something inside me. And I think that journey, because I see it as a journey, comes with desire and motivation to just experience life. And so I don't necessarily, like, I get up, now I'm working around the world, so my day could start at 4 a.m. after a night of twins. And I don't feel like, oh God, I don't want to work today. I get up and get my coffee, and I can't wait to sit in front of these people. And so it's just loving what I get to do, and getting to do it on a big scale has been everything. So now I feel like it's just such a blessing. And that's, I guess, my motivation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks for that question. Wow.
All right, so thank you, Kelly, for being on this and interviewing with us today. It was pretty awesome.
So
Loved hearing your story. You can get Kelly's free offer in the link right here on her speaker page. It's below. You can also read her bio and everything else about her right here. If you loved this interview, please tell all of your friends, and they can watch this as well. You can also continue the conversation in our Facebook group, Six Figure Souls, which will all be about these interviews. And if you have questions or something, you can write them in there, and Kelly can always come and answer them for us.
Great. Thank you, Camille. What an honor. And hail to the entrepreneur. Go get it.
Yeah.
Go get it.
All right. Thanks, Kelly.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.